it, how long have we been doing this show?
The Wrestling Life.
Hey everybody, it's The Wrestling Life. It's episode 407. It is our Wrestlemania 41 recap and News of the League recap and all that good stuff. I'm Ethan.
I'm Liam.
Liam, we have so much to talk about here this week.
And as always, so many things we can't talk about on the first and only wrestling podcast.
WrestleMania 41's in the books. And I hope the fans just shut up and enjoyed it. That's my big takeaway from WrestleMania weekend is TKO. Everybody should just be fans.
Yeah.
Big picture wise, what did you think about Days of Mania?
I feel like this is a lot of people's opinion. I thought night one, people were like really, really down on night one from what I saw, and I didn't think it was particularly good, but I would sort of liken it to Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg's Uncharted movie. It's not good. It wasn't good, but it's like, and nobody was trying particularly hard to make it good for the most part. But it went by relatively quickly, and I wasn't offended by watching it. So I thought Night One was just kind of there. The main event was better from an in-ring standard, although we got our requisite Shakespeare in the Park sections where we're monologuing. But yeah, I mean, the action was good. They brought it, and you got your big storyline beat at the end there with Paul turning on Seth. And then night two, some good wrestling, some funny stuff, honestly, a lot of funny stuff, which we can get into here. And then a really crappy main event, which we will definitely get into in a second here. So I thought, yeah, like night one probably maybe ages a little better because the end of the show was the best part, whereas night two, the show started pretty good and then got progressively worse as it went.
Well, Triple H kicked off night one. He's very notoriously camera shy. And so I thought it was big of him to overcome his fear of public speaking and welcome the crowd to WrestleMania. And then Jey Uso beat Gunther with a choke. I mean, I guess we got to give him some moves here at some point. So cool. But the Yeet Man's the world champion, and on Raw, Sami Zayn and brother Jim celebrated with him. You've been a vocal commentator on Jey Uso's rise to prominence. How do you feel about him beating Gunther?
I mean, I would have personally picked a good wrestler to be the world's champion, but look, he's very over. People like him. He's polite and rarely late. He's not the brother who keeps getting arrested for DUIs, right?
I'm gonna have to look it up.
Well, anyway, I'll just say, like, I didn't think the match was very good. It's probably one of the worst Gunther matches I've seen in the last 3 years, but it got the job done, which is he wins the belt and then he goes into the crowd and does the big yeet thing and the whole stadium's doing it. So people love it, even if I do not love it.
There is a legal issues section on main event Jey Uso's Wikipedia page. He has a driving without a license.
Okay.
But I believe it's brother Jim who has all of the other issues.
I see. Well then, yes, I hope they both partied responsibly after this big win.
Jay was the one who was sleeping at the Hall of Fame. and looks like he'd had a drink or two at the WrestleMania press conference. But hey, The New Day defeated the War Raiders to win the World Tag Team Championships in a match that went 9 minutes. I don't know why this was on WrestleMania. I really don't.
For the Clash of Clans sponsorship, I think.
Oh, we should talk about this, all the sponsorship. We had the Minute Maid juice box.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had the drumstick cone zone.
That's true.
This was even by late stage capitalism WWE standards. There was an obscene amount of advertising and product placement on these shows.
Yeah, the entire show had Xfinity all over the stage.
Yep.
And the entrance videos were all brought to us by the wonderful folks at the Comcast Corporation. Yeah, it was everywhere, and that's just, that's not even including like Logan Paul hawking his own personal brands and all the stuff all over the mat. That might be my favorite part of the two nights, was CM Punk kissing the ad for whatever mobile game they were hawking that was in the center of the WrestleMania screen. I thought that was really funny. I don't think that's what he was trying to do, but that was what I took away from it. It's like he was kissing this weird Japanese fighter mobile game that I've never heard of before, but probably has like 12 trillion players worldwide on it somehow.
Yep, that was it was all over every show. Jade Cargill beat Naomi. Match is just kind of there.
Better than I expected, maybe because Jade hasn't had a lot of singles matches of quality in her career, much less in WWE. So the fact that it was just fine, I was like, hey, good for them. Finish was cool.
Jacob Fatu beat LA Knight for the United States Championship. The rise of Jacob Fatu is here. And maybe he and LA can play footsie with it for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, you can let LA chase the belt for a while, or I don't know if they're going to do another draft here soon, but it feels like maybe it's time for LA to move over and go chase the other mid card belt for a while. So could also do that with them.
I'm not sure if they know if there's going to be another draft soon or not. I'm thinking Dwayne and Paul might argue about it. We'll get there in a second. El Grande Americano defeated Ray Phoenix in the WrestleMania debut for Phoenix, who was a sub for Rey Mysterio, who got hurt on the SmackDown before WrestleMania. A show so inconsequential, yet somehow Rey Mysterio got hurt during it. Anyway, El Hijo del Vikingo was there because WWE announced that they bought AAA.
Oh yeah, that little nugget.
Yeah, so Vikingo and the AAA folks. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to begin to make of WWE buying AAA. It seems like a bad idea. It's like I feel like they would have much better luck just trying to start something of their own rather than try to buy a brand name, even though if it's the number two brand name in the country. I don't know. It feels like it has the stench of failure to it to me. Do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know what it does for you other than they can run shows the week before CMLL and AEW do their show. Like I don't know. Like I don't know what it does for WWE. I guess it gives them an immediate foothold in the country that they didn't have before. But yeah, why buy AAA has been on the down, and Triple H have been on the down slope for several years now. And apparently they've been looking to sell for a long time. I know the Lucha Blog guy had like a really long article. I read some of it about kind of the history and how they've kind of been looking to sell since the original promoter and president died a few years ago. But so I get why it's a great deal for AAA. I just don't quite get what WWE gets out of it. I mean, I guess it's another tape library. There's lots of Rey Mysterio matches and stuff that you have access to now. A lot of A lot of big stars have come through AAA over the years. A lot of Jeff Jarrett matches added to their library now, so that's good.
I guess that's probably the case for the pay-per-views. I'm wondering, and I guess that's where all the big matches are anyway, but I'm wondering if there's the weird thing there, like there is in Japan, where the network owns some of the stuff
Mm.
too. Because like wasn't that the thing with the AAA Worlds Collide show for years? It was like even though WWE bought the WCW library, they didn't air it
I think so.
ever.
Yeah.
They didn't put it on their they didn't put it on their network ever or anything like that. Anyway, it's something to keep an eye on. I don't know the answer to it one way or the other, and I doubt any wrestling quote unquote reporters know the answer either. But El Grande Americano beat Ray Phoenix. All right. Tiffany
Yeah.
Stratton
Why,
defeated
why
Charlotte
why would
Flair.
you not just put Dragon Lee in that spot? Not that we should be talking about this for that much longer, but like if you're just gonna have someone in there to beat, could it not be the guy who just showed up 2 weeks ago? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes too much sense, man. I don't. Dragon Lee is on speed, and he's like, I don't know. He can't make it to TV. Ray Phoenix, you just brought him in with all this pomp and circumstance, and you're gonna need him for Mexico. And yeah, I mean, it's a fair. I have no answer for you. Tiffany Stratton beat Charlotte Flair to retain the women's championship. This was rotten, but not the funny kind of rotten that I expected. It was just kind of rotten. But hey, if you wanted to make the argument that this was good because there were obviously no signs of cooperation between the talent in the match, and it looked like they were actually struggling to do moves at some points, I would begrudgingly concede that point to you. What did you think of this match?
Yeah, not no bueno. They were a little bit off, and Tiffany certainly showed the wounds of war, as they said when this was over. So wasn't good, but Tiffy won clean, and I don't know. I hope. What did we learn from all of this? Feels like the end of Burn After Reading. What did we learn from all of this Charlotte experiment that we went on these last few months? I guess we learned not to put her on
It's
the same
me.
show as Tiffany Stratton.
I guess. I don't know.
Hmm.
We're doing another match here.
I'm, I
Beats
mean,
me.
I would say, well, why would you when the champion beat the challenger clean? But it's the World Wrestling Federation, and that happens all the time. So could be. I don't know. They don't really have anyone else obvious ready. I guess they could go back to the Nia match at some point for Tiffany, but they've already done that also. So I don't know.
Yeah, with SmackDown not having taken place as this is we're recording this, we don't have a lot of answers about that. But Seth Rollins beat CM Punk and Roman Reigns when Paul Heyman turned on CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Seth Rollins became a new Paul Heyman guy, and then Braun Breaker became a new Paul Heyman guy on Raw the next night. You mentioned Shakespeare in the Park. What did you think of the match? And you mentioned Phil kissing the mobile game logo in the middle of the ring after he accomplished his life's goal of main eventing WrestleMania night one.
Yeah, he main evented night one of a buy one get one or whatever he said in AEW when he was on a different team. Um, yeah, the match itself had its moments. I like the part where they tease doing the 9 trillionth Shield reunion, and then Roman just punched Seth in the face instead. I thought that was great. I thought that was really really good. So props to whoever came up with that spot, Joe Hennig or Kenny Dykstra, whoever's calling the shots back there these days. It's a main event, so I assume it was Michael Hayes, but yeah, there was some fun stuff in it. I thought everybody worked really hard for the most part. Um, yeah, I think the Seth turn or the Paul turn. Here's the thing, and I say this, and let me just preface this by saying, I'm a husky man. I'm a fat man. I will go as far as to say Paul Heyman is so fucking fat. He could. It took him
Jeez.
forever to get in position behind Punk,
Jeez.
and he had to get down so early so that he could do it. That it completely telegraphed what he was doing. And then he telegraphed even more because Roman like shifted slightly, and he had already like started to drop to a knee, and he couldn't really stop himself, so he had to do this like awkward pivot thing, and then he had to drop down, and then he low blows Roman and somehow gets like his arm caught in Roman's groin, and it's just like Paul Heyman is too fat to be doing spots in the main event of WrestleMania. Paul, you're a very wealthy man. Uh, get on a get some Ozempic if or don't do spots. Be happy and be happy and be beautiful at your current weight and enjoy your life. But you can't do spots no more if you're gonna be this fat. You just can't. It doesn't look good. And he telegraphed what should have been like the biggest moment of the match for like 5 minutes before it happened. It felt like because it took him so long to get to position. So either if you want to be active and still take bumps and do all that in a way that's entertaining and good, you need to lose some weight. If you don't want to do any of that, keep living your life the way you want, and God bless you for it. That's my thoughts on Paul Heyman.
Wow. Oh, wow. You are too fat to fish.
Yeah, kind of. Again,
Um,
I say this as someone who arguably myself also too fat to be doing spots in the main event of WrestleMania. Again, I am not. It's not the fatness I have the problem. It's the chosen profession that he is in where the issue is coming into play.
I mean, I think that's a valid criticism. I do appreciate that you incorporated some body positivity into your message and told him to be happy at his current, beautiful at his current weight.
It's not lying Paul anymore. It's beautiful Paul.
Oh, that's great. What do you think of the new Dangerous Alliance here that Heyman's building?
Yeah. I mean, it's an old idea that's recycled a million times, but it's fine. It's the thing I didn't like about it is that it appears that Seth is doing the same character he was before the turn, which is his cackling, silly costume goofball thing. So I
He was dressed as the man in the yellow hat from Curious George on Raw.
he was indeed. So like that
A
bums me.
classic a classic literary character.
Correct. If ever there was one. Yeah. So like the idea of Seth getting a fresh coat of paint and having Paul as a manager to speak and Breaker as this super intense guy, and hey, maybe you add in a couple more people in the coming weeks. Who knows? You could throw a tag team in there. You could put the New Day in there or something if you wanted to, flesh it out. Probably not because for some reason Paul doesn't seem to book guys like the New Day in main events very often. So, but maybe some tag team could be added to that group as well. Yeah, I mean, as far as an idea, it's a bunch of new heels on top. You have a new babyface world champion who's going to need guys to work with. So yeah, why not? And then also it's a tray of heels for Punk and Roman and all the other top baby faces on the show to work with as well. So yeah, on principle, I like it. We'll just like I said, I would like to see some tweaking of Seth's stuff going forward. And also, if he's a heel now, officially change his music because why is a heel wanting the crowd to sing along with him? But that's we could say the same
Sure.
thing about Jericho for years doing that, or any number of other heels. So it's part of the show.
Sure.
People come to see it.
I enjoyed the main event there on night one.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a criticism, it would be that most of these angles that are happening just feel like angles that they're doing because they feel like wrestling angles and not like I don't know, doesn't feel like there's a ton of thought that's gone into what happens 6 to 12 months down the road. It just feels like, okay, this is an angle we can do. We're gonna do it.
Mm,
Like John Cena turning heel or Paul turning on Roman Reigns and CM Punk and I guess maybe the Paul one is maybe a little bit different, but I don't know. It just feels like it's like okay, well there you can do those angles, but it's like I'm not sure I would have, but I don't know. We did talk about the Paul going with Seth or Seth going with Paul last week, and
mhm,
thankfully one of us is always right. So
of course. And what a rest of the weekend Paul had for himself, huh? With the roast and with the whatever the hell he was doing on Pat McAfee's show on Monday. And
Uh, did you see any of Dan Lebatard, who used to work for ESPN and has his own media company now? It's still somewhat relevant in the sports media. Did you see him talking about Heyman?
no, I missed that.
Okay, so Dan Lebatard has started Middle Arc Media or whatever, and has enough venture capital money that's been going for a few years since he left ESPN, and produces his own shows, and he has his own house, kind of like Dan Patrick or one of those former
Mhm.
ESPN guys, or like McAfee before he was on ESPN. And he's like, I turned on ESPN yesterday and I saw this wrestling guy. I think he has Lebatard as wrestlers on his show sometimes. It's not like he's a Phil Mushnick
Right.
who hates wrestling. It's just he just is he's not a viewer or anything, but it's not like he's against it.
Sure.
He's like I turned on McAfee's show on ESPN yesterday, and he's like I was absolutely blown away. He's like, whatever's going on over at ESPN, he's like, this guy, speaking of Heyman, who was doing, I don't know what you would describe it as, his 1990s WCW or ECW character
Mm.
on on the McAfee show. But Libetard was like, this guy is way too hot for TV. And loaded statement. And he was doing his wrestling shtick on ESPN on the McAfee show, and it was very crass and just not something you would ever expect to see on ESPN. And he was talking about how ESPN's changed so much, and it's
Hmm.
they went from not wanting to make any stars to now they're completely about the stars that they have in McAfee and Stephen A. Smith and et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
anyway, Paul Heyman was very obnoxious on ESPN on Monday on the McAfee show, and then obnoxious at the roast of WrestleMania. Obnoxious might be understating it. I don't know. Like I didn't listen. I'm not listening to 2 hours of bad quality cell phone audio
Yeah.
to figure out just how racist and terrible the right wing comedians and the WWE mid card were when they were yelling at one another at the roast of WrestleMania on Monday morning East Coast time. But shockingly, that didn't go well.
Yeah. I mean, the roast itself is whatever. I don't know what anyone would have expected. Uh, you had some actual comedians, most of whom it did not appear pay a lot of attention to wrestling. And then you had wrestlers who are not comedians who happen to be some of the more thin-skinned people walking the face of the earth, at least as far as celebrities go. And you put them all in a room and told them to roast each other. Yeah, I don't know. And unlike most roasts, like when Comedy Central, I don't know if Comedy Central still does theirs or not, but when they would do theirs, they would have like one singular person would be like the target of the roast. That's like the tradition of the roast. Whereas this was just kind of like
Right, right.
this is just like let's just take shots at whoever you feel. So like Nia Jax was on there making fun of Cody for being like fake and making fun of Charlotte for being divorced and talking about how one of the comedians wrote all of Becky Lynch's tweets for her or something like whatever. And then you had the Paul stuff, which is like, yeah, he starts trying to do racial humor and he's like talking over the fluffy guy, Gabriel Iglesias. And they got like into some kind
Right.
of shouting match on stage, which is funny. Um, but yeah, like it was like that was just like whatever. I don't know how anyone would that. Of course, that was a mess and it was crass and it was awful and stupid. Him doing it on like a worldwide television audience, in front of a worldwide television audience on ESPN the following day was like bonkers to me. First of all, I wouldn't, if I worked for the World Wrestling Federation in 2025, I would not be making cracks about someone else's sexual harassment or improprieties, which he did, referencing Shannon Sharp. And then, uh, yeah, and then the racial stuff as well, which, yeah, it felt like a Bubba Ray Dudley promo from 1998. Like it was Paul trying to get a rise and like, oh, I'm being a heel. And also the thing is like, to Paul's credit, like I've just said, I don't think he's good at it, but he is bumping for guys the last few nights. But like the other thing is like, if you're gonna be this like racist, for lack of a better term, you need to be bumping all the freaking time, because that's where the catharsis for the audience is. We talked about this with the Grande Americano thing, like that gimmick to me. And again, maybe it's not my place to say because I'm not Latino, but it's like, to me, that gimmick, if it's paid off, if the racist a-hole is gets the crap knocked out of him and is embarrassed by the babyface at the end of the show, great. That's the villain getting their comeuppance, and villains aren't supposed to be virtuous people, so they can do and say terrible things that other people wouldn't say because they're not terrible people. So like, I'm not opposed to like pushing those buttons in certain contexts necessarily, but it's like it should be in within the interest of like giving the audience the payoff of you being embarrassed and beaten up at the end. And I don't think that's what Paul was doing when he's making deportation jokes on Pat McAfee at 3 in the afternoon on ESPN.
Yeah. Yeah. We were discussing in our work Slack whether or not we were going to cover the roast when the audio came out on
Mm-hmm.
whatever night that was this week, Wednesday night. And I said I'm not listening to 2 hours of comedians and the WWE mid card with head trauma yelling at one another. And also, I don't even know what the story would be. It's like we're gonna play gotcha with Paul Heyman for being a racist on a roast that his company advertised heavily and produced. Like the heat should be on the company. We knew the heat was going to be on the company. We knew it was a terrible idea. It was a terrible idea. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know what. No one should be surprised at any of this. Is like, I guess what I'm trying to say. It doesn't make it good or right, but no one.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they were,
All right.
yeah, sorry, I think we had a lag there. Yeah, I mean just the fact that they were advertising it, but also obviously chose not to air it because they knew there was
Yes.
at least a chance. They
Yes.
didn't want this clipped in HD at the very least.
Yes. I thought one of those comedians dated Becky Lynch, and he did. There we go. So interesting that they hired him to do this.
Hmm.
What do you know about that? All right, WrestleMania Night 2. Io Sky beat Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. Heck of a match.
Yeah, best match of the whole weekend. Yeah, great match. And EO won, which was really neat. And yeah, everybody worked really hard and worked well together. And yeah, I think it's, recency bias being what it is. It's probably up there with one of the better WrestleMania opening matches that I can think of. So yeah, good for them.
Drew McIntyre beat Damian Priest in a street fight. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I would have thought that Drew would be in line for Cody, but Cody didn't keep the belt, and I'm not sure what brand anyone's on anymore anyway, so I don't know that it matters. I don't know. I I do like Drew getting a win to kind of stay at the top of the card. Four way for the Intercontinental title. Dirty Dom beat Braun Breaker, Finn Balor, and Penta. Dirty Dom was a massive babyface in the building. This is a hardcore crowd. I guess I shouldn't be surprised at anything. This is your most hardcore of hardcore fans that are going to travel and pay current WWE ticket prices to go to WrestleMania. But were you surprised by the babyface reaction? And what did you think of the match?
Kind of. I was, even though, yeah, traditionally 7 or 8 years ago, I would not have been. But we've talked about this that as WWE has sort of exploded in popularity, even for these big stadium shows, the fans don't seem interested in like cheering people they're not supposed to cheer. So the fact that Dominic was just like selected as the big baby face, and he even kind of played to it, to played to the crowd. So yeah, I was kind of shocked by it. I was also surprised that that Penta didn't win the title because we talked about it. I thought that would be like the way to get to everywhere that we're going, which is Braun Breaker away from the Intercontinental title, and then the Judgment Day stuff can continue. But we've got even more stories to tell in the Will the Judgment Day breakup saga. It shall continue for until morale improves, I guess. So yeah, like it was a good moment, and I mean, as far as picking the guy that the crowd was most into, they absolutely did, and yeah, it made for a more memorable moment than you otherwise would have had with a random four-way on a WrestleMania.
So Randy Orton's mystery opponent was TNA World Champion Joe Hendry, who he beat in 3 minutes. Joe Hendry thinks this is awesome for his career
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and thinks that everyone backstage was super complimentary of him when CM Punk told him the match was exactly what it should have been. Uh, Joe Hendry, look, in any other era, it's like, oh, they buried another company's world champion. It's 2025 TNA, which
Mm-hmm.
only exists at WWE's beck and call, and Joe Hendry is a meme. He's the world champion, but he's a meme. So I had no problem with any of this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of my thing. My only reason I think anyone should be mad about this is if you're of the opinion that Joe Hendry could be like a serious wrestler and like a real world champion in a real company. Then you should probably be mad about how he was treated. Otherwise, yeah, they treated him like Santino, like they treated him like R-Truth, which is what he's going to be when his TNA contract is up and he signs with WWE. Like, and that's fine. That's a good spot. R-Truth is like 50, and he's still there doing this shtick, and is still beloved, to a percentage of that audience. So it's like, yeah, that's a great spot to have if you're willing to play the clown. Good for him. He'll sell tons of merchandise. I'm sure that WrestleMania shirt he got sold like hotcakes. And yeah, again, unless you think that he's like a real serious contender and should be treated seriously, why would anyone have a problem with this? Like, this is exactly how you should treat a guy who's going to be your next R-Truth or Santino.
Logan Paul beat AJ Styles. Father Times also defeated AJ Styles.
What
I mean,
did
we've been
he
we've
and
been,
Cody get? Like, what supplements did they take? Because Cody somehow got two good matches out of AJ last year, and no one else has been able to crack the code for like 5 straight years now.
well, that was AJ coming out before yet another injury, right?
True.
So maybe it was this last one where he cracked his heel or whatever it was. Maybe that one was just one more than he could take. We've been on the AJ's washed bandwagon for like 7 years at this point, so
Mm-hmm.
this is no longer surprising. But Logan Paul probably wins and loses equally about as often as he should.
Yeah, I mean
It's
he's
my other big takeaway here.
yeah, I think he is he should win once in a while because that's part of the gimmick is that he's awful and doesn't belong in wrestling. So the heat needs to be when he beats a proper wrestler through underhanded means or whatever. This time it wasn't really underhanded on his part. It was Karrion Kross and that push, which is definitely going to be the one to elevate Karrion Kross for sure. Um, that they were involved in there. But yeah, for Logan Paul, fine, you got him a win, and so now you can move him on to whenever he's in again the next Saudi show or whatever. He can be coming off a win for that show.
Becky Lynch returned at WrestleMania. She teamed with Lyra Valkyria to win the Women's Tag Team Championship from Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And then the next night on Raw, they lost those titles to Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and Becky Lynch turned heel on Lyra Valkyria and was wildly cheered for it.
Oh man.
We've seen this before, haven't we?
Yeah, we sure have. And you can't even blame it on the crowd. Like, I don't think the crowd is sick of Lyra Valkyria, the women's intercontinental champion. People could make the claim that people weren't that into Becky, they're just sick of Charlotte. Like, no, I think in this case, people like Becky. They like when she's a badass who kicks ass, and that's what she did on that night too, on the Raw. So yeah, it was a nice moment. Got a nice reaction coming out. Look, I wouldn't have Becky Lynch be a heel because it feels like diminishing returns. But if she's more interested in being a heel, and that will result in her being a little bit more plugged into what she's doing this time around, as opposed to it felt like she was pretty much on autopilot for the last. Still had some good matches, but she felt like she was on autopilot to me for the last few months. Not that she didn't work hard, but yeah, from a character standpoint, she felt pretty stale when she left. So, yeah, maybe this will give her a fresh coat of paint, and it's the first time like Lyra will have a chance to work with someone, yeah, for like a real serious personal issue and not just like a Dakota Kai won a battle royal and now wrestles her on Raw the following week. So it's a good opportunity for like people to care about Lyra for the first time ever. Like they're being given a reason because now she's like the underdog and her friend turned on her. So there's something there, which is probably good for Lyra's career as well.
Only thing I'm curious about is if Becky continues to get cheered every week, will they adjust? Will they pivot?
Well, history is Road Dogg's back having some kind of writing role, isn't he?
He is.
Huh. We know his opinions on Becky Lynch as a heel from 2018. I don't know, man. I mean, if they kind of would have to, you would think, because how could you let it happen to you a second time? Like, what an own goal to let the crowd, force you into doing something, kicking and screaming again with the same person for like the third time. But we'll see. Yeah, like you said, I guess we'll see how much of that was hardcore crowd and how much those reactions sort of, wrestling fans can be very monkey see monkey do with chants and certain reactions. So I guess we'll see if Becky's still cheered next week, and if I guess same for Dominic, like we were saying.
John Cena beat Cody Rhodes. The Rock didn't show up. The Rock said he told WWE months ago he wasn't showing up. Travis Scott showed up. Cody lost because he refused to cheat. Steve Kahn, who writes the WWE recaps for the Observer site, said this is a match laid out for babies. And I really can't come up with a better description. Like, it was the most infantile way of, yeah, this was a match laid out for children. Hey, Cena won his 17th title, wins their most ever as they Cody we'll find out what's next for Cody. Cena and Orton looks like it's next. The next pay-per-view's in St. Louis. Um, it's good to see a match we saw 100 million times 15 years ago. We get to see it again here in 2025 when God only knows what Randy still has left and when John is absolutely beyond washed. That was my take
Oh
from
my
this
gosh.
match. Even though he's a heel, even though he's doing this new character, I guess if that's what you want to call it, uh, John can't do a damn thing in the ring. And hey, man, he gave his body more than most, right? For
Sure.
20, almost 25 years now. He's got nothing left in the tank. And however long he holds this title, the matches are not going to be any good when they happen, is my big takeaway here. But what did you think of the main event? What did you think next for Cody? What's next for John with Randy Orton? I guess we'll find out. But what did you think?
Yeah, so the match itself was bad. Yeah, it was laid out very simply. Cena was working a chin lock like 90 seconds into the match. Look, the guy hasn't worked heel since like 2003. This is not necessarily playing to his strengths, but he's also been wrestling for long enough that you'd think he could figure it out. Um, yeah, he can't go no more. He's not very good. Uh, the crowd was hot for a lot of the match, despite the fact that it wasn't very good, which I guess is a credit to how over they are as characters. But yeah, the in ring was sloppy. Cena bumps really weird now. Like, not that he was ever the most graceful wrestler, but he's falling on his hip all the time now. And I'm like, John, what do you do? Like, you know how to bump. Like, you can't have
Is
forgotten it.
do you think it's a movie insurance thing? Like, I know he's supposedly in close to full time and he has 36 dates or whatever the number is between now and December. He's bumping like a guy who's not allowed to take bumps, right?
Kinda, yeah, yeah. There's something weird there. Um, where like he will not just take a traditional like flat back for anything. He did do like the Batista spot where he jumps off the top rope and Cody caught him in a power bomb. That was probably like the most dangerous thing he did in the match. But for the most part, it's just like, yeah, every time he bumped in this match, I was like, why is he doing that? Why, like, it looks so weird, and it looks like he's purposefully angling his body to like land on his ass or his hip every time. And I'm trying to figure out why he's doing that. Um, but yeah, so the match wasn't good. And then like 4 hours into it, Travis Scott saunters out and it takes him 9 minutes to get to the ring. And I was watching this show with my other podcast co-host and his wife, and we were generally like asking, is he taking so long to get to the ring because they want to play the whole song, whatever this Travis Scott song is that they kept playing during WrestleMania? Was this like in the contract that the whole song gets to play? Because he took 800 hours to get to the ring, and then he took a not very good crossroads, and then John Cena, Cody grabs the belt from Cena, but he's conflicted for some reason. I feel like Hulk Hogan and the baby faces of the 80s long since established that if the heel tries to hit you with an object first, you are well within your babyface rights to whip their ass with it. But Cody does not follow those school of thought, apparently. So he stood there for like an hour holding the belt, and then and then John just kicked him in the balls and hit the move and pinned him. So, and then hit him with the belt and pinned him. So I did not like the match. I did not like the run in. I did not like the finish. So they were over 3 with me. And then the aftermath, as far as what they did, we'll get to the Dwayne and Paul of it all. Don't you worry, listener. But yeah, the aftermath, Cena and Orton is like, it's. I understand if this is going to be Cena is picking who he wants to work with, maybe I can understand some value in that. If it's the end of his road and you want to give him his choice of opponents and he wants to do some of his greatest hits, that's fine. Him and Orton didn't have particularly great matches 15 years ago. So I don't suspect they'll have a good one now, but I'm sure the crowd will be hot for it. So that's disgusting. As far as what's next for Cody, I don't know. Like, I mean, like you said, Drew is coming off of a win, so you could have those guys feud just without the belt on the line. Um, because it doesn't appear they're putting Drew with Jay or with any of the other baby faces at the moment. So it would give Cody like a summer program to keep him away from the title, and then you can get back. You can do a Cena Cody rematch at SummerSlam or whenever Survivor Series, whenever they want to. But I mean, yeah, so you could put him with him, or you could put him with Jacob Fatu or somebody if you wanted to just, you know, give him something to do for a while. But it doesn't feel like everything coming out of the show was John Cena is the champion, John Cena is a heel now, and our baby face who carried the flag for the last year. It's like, what's going to happen to him? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. That's kind of the vibes I was getting off it. Like, I'm not sure that they have a full idea of what Cody's going to be doing the rest of this year.
Well, Triple H kind of reverted to his kind wrestling uncle, benevolent wrestling uncle persona at the press conferences after these shows, where he was talking about how the fans are family and all that stuff. But as we mentioned last week on the show, in the week leading up to WrestleMania, WWE did a lot of very bad public relations work for themselves, with Triple H telling people to just watch things as a fan, just be a fan, don't be a critic, be a fan. And Dwayne Johnson has kind of used the same rhetoric this week, but Dwayne went on Pat McAfee's show Monday or Tuesday. Tuesday, I think?
Yeah.
Tuesday or Wednesday. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He went on Pat McAfee's show one day this week and said, yeah, I was never supposed to be at WrestleMania. I only went to Elimination Chamber because Ari Emanuel called me for a favor. He said that ticket sales were bad for Toronto, and he asked me to cook up a hot angle. So Dwayne paints himself as the guy that Ari Emanuel calls because Paul's bad at his job, because Triple H is bad at his job, and definitely bucks the narrative that is pushed on television that WWE is red hot. They sold 26,000 tickets or whatever the number ended up being for the Elimination Chamber in Toronto, but they were in a 65,000 seat stadium.
Right.
So I can see. I remember talking about that ahead of time and then being surprised that they only set it up for half a house, thinking if they're as hot as they say they are, I bet they're going to try to put a lot of people in that Sky Dome or Rogers Center, whatever it is now. And then I was like, oh, well, they only set it up for half a house. Well, maybe they didn't intend to set it up for half a house. They could only sell half a house. I mean, that's still super impressive. Like, and 26,000 in a stadium is
right. That
better
was
than
like people slagging off AEW last year because they only put 40,000 people in Wembley instead of 80 or whatever. Like, it's like, yeah, it's less, but it's also an impressive number of people to pack into a building for a show. And same here for WWE.
Right. But but when Dwayne said that, and then he was responding to the busted open guy on Instagram and saying it's all a work, just in every aspect of his business, every match, every promo, every interview. It's all a work. I don't know if that means that he was saying he was working when he was on McAfee's show or what. I don't know. Anyway, it looks like there's infighting between the Levesque camp and the Dwayne Johnson camp, and it's fascinating. We talked years ago about what a post Vince WWE would look like and who would be running creative, and threw the name Brian Gewirtz out there. This is years ago. This is like when they got the Peacock deal. This is 40 years ago. We were saying, you know what? I think Brian Gewirtz is going to end up in that chair one day. And I think we're getting closer to it. Triple H is in the Hall of Fame now. He has his gold watch. I don't expect it like next week or anything, but the professional and personal rivalry between Triple H and The Rock continues to this day, as evidenced by The Rock's comments this week. I know you thoroughly enjoy all of this. What did you think?
Uh, Team Dwayne, just to be clear. Um, he's fully turned it around for me. Big fan of Dwayne this week.
This is a guy you've hated for more than a decade.
Yeah, no, and like all the things I thought about him are still what I think about him. But any port in the storm, as they say. Um, so there's a couple of things. One is, as we've talked about, Paul Levesque put his fucking face everywhere, all over the place this week. Media leading up to it, he put himself in the Hall of Fame for a second time on Friday night in the middle of the night, if you were on the East Coast. Saturday, he opens WrestleMania. He does his little press conferences. He was at that roast of WrestleMania, came out to be the main eventer and did his entrance with his music. And then, so like I have seen it. And look, as we've just talked about, WWE is inarguably the hottest it's been in years, or and is it was and has continued to be since he took over a hot property. And whether or not you think he deserves all the credit for it, officially, if his is the name of the door on the door, he's allowed to take credit for it, much to my chagrin. But he can. That
Yep.
being said, that also should mean that when you book a bad show, your name's on the door, buddy. And you can't just become I'm just a little guy. I'm just a little birthday boy. I can't do anything. The evil Rock is coming to ruin my show. Okay, even if we give you that, even if we say the Rock wreaked havoc all over the Cena Cody match, and we didn't know if he was coming or going, and we didn't know what to do, and we couldn't write promos for Cena because we didn't know if at any point Dwayne and Brian were going to come walking back into the room and decide they were going to do WrestleMania, and so we had to keep everything sort of vague. Okay, could you explain why every other match on the show also had crappy build, and why you ended up with all of these 3 ways and 4 ways all over the show because you had no interesting ideas? Like, I just think if you want all of the adulation, if you want all of the cheers and people to bow down to you when you enter to your Motorhead, to one of your 2 Motorhead entrance themes, you also need to take it on the chin when the show's bad. And this show was bad. And yes, the Cena and Cody stuff was the worst part of the show, but it was not the only bad part of the show. So that's my first one. That's for Paul. On the Dwayne side of it, I think his version of events is probably somewhat true, in my opinion. Now,
Noted truth teller.
yeah. Now, according to Uncle Dave, I believe said that they were told as far back as August that he was not going to work WrestleMania. Dwayne might have even said that on the show. But he the thing that flies in the face of that is that he did make that appearance in like the middle of October where he came out and stood on the stage and like menaced Cody and Roman. But we'll forget about that one for a while.
And it led to nothing.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But then what makes me believe that he actually did not plan on doing WrestleMania at any point this year is when he came out on that first Netflix Raw and he was Glasses Dwayne. He was not The Rock. He was not the final boss. I'm just here to congratulate everyone, including Cody Rhodes. What a great champion he is. And I'm just so proud of all of the value we've created for our stockholders here. And here's Ted Sarandos up there. Hey, buddy. And I believe that like he did that because he was like, hey, don't expect me around for Mania. I'm blowing off all my stuff. And he came out and he gave Roman the Ulafala necklace on the same show. It was like, case is closed. And if we want to go back to it in 2 years or whenever Dwayne decides to get back on, fine. But I feel like that was Dwayne saying, hey, I'm done. I'm not doing it this year. Now, The other part that flies in the face of that is that Dwayne got big mad that everybody talked about how terrible that promo he did as Glasses Dwayne on that Raw was, and then he showed up
Yes.
possibly intoxicated, allegedly, on NXT the following night, and ranted and raved about how the internet fans are never happy and they should all just shut up and enjoy the ride. Um, so, but then we didn't see The Rock for like a month and a half or 2 months, and then yes, he pops up a week before Elimination Chamber to do this by Cody Soul thing, and we know, as he himself confirmed, another nugget that wrestling reporters had right, which is that he wanted Cody to be the one that turned, and or at least
Yep.
he suggested it. Maybe saying he wanted it is too strong of a word for Dwayne, but and it was decided that wasn't going to happen. I feel like somebody's going to say Cody said no, somebody's going to say Paul said no. Regardless, Cody was not going to turn, and then it's like, all right, we're going to do Cena then, and as he tells it, he's like, all right, well then I'll do this angle because Ari Emanuel asked me to, because the ticket sales were down. Oh, what a dig! What a great dig to get in there. I was so happy when I heard him say that. Um, and then yeah, he texted Cody and John, not Paul, interestingly, but he texted Cody and John the next day and said, "I think the final boss's work here is done." And then he went back to his home planet. So it's like, if that, even if let's say if 80% of what Dwayne's version of things is true, then it is still kind of on Paul again for not figuring it out, and on John Cena, who's been cutting wrestling promos for 25 years, and on Cody for that matter, because it's not like Cody's stuff was that much better. Um, like they couldn't figure out what the turn was for the next 4 weeks or whatever. Whereas like 1 week it was because he hates the fans because they booed him in 2010, and 1 week it was because he's doing Summer of Punk, and 1 week it was because Cody like used to be his young boy and now he thinks he's gotten too big for his britches or whatever. So like they couldn't pick a lane the whole time, and that's not Dwayne's fault unless you can say the specter of Dwayne loomed so large and they just kept expecting him to barge back in and decide he was going to do WrestleMania. That it's all his fault. But I'm like, nah, I think a lot of this goes on Paul and to a lesser extent John Cena for not coming up with a compelling follow-up to what was a very compelling angle, which was the initial turn.
The glaring issue to me is that they barely mentioned The Rock after the initial angle. Like they
Right.
replayed the turn 100 times the week it happened, but then I'm not even sure he was mentioned in a Cena or Cody promo until the final week.
Right.
It's,
And then it was
it's
like
like
one line.
right, and it's like, well, whatever. What to your point, whatever the reason was or whatever the alliance here is, we can just pay some lip service to it until we figure out what's going on. John can say something super unsatisfying and unfulfilling, like my reasons for aligning with Dwayne Johnson are my own.
Mm-hmm.
Unknown reasons. Great.
Right. Right. The fans
At
don't
least
deserve an explanation, as you said, when he first turned and the promo was bad. Just go with the classics.
anything. They just said nothing. It's,
They punted for 4 straight weeks on the main event of WrestleMania following the biggest heel turn in 20 years.
at best, this sounds like a miscommunication issue. It's like, well, Ari Emanuel can get Dwayne on the phone, and John and Cody are texting with him. So how about we ask Dwayne, hey man, how do you want us to address the fact that you're stepping out of this angle and we have 6 weeks before WrestleMania? How would you like us to handle this? Right? I mean, what they just didn't address it.
Yeah, that's the wildest thing. Right, right. Like, tell us, like, get Brian and Dwayne on a conference call and just go, hey man, we'll be as vague as you want, but we have to like keep you alive in this angle a little bit.
Right.
like explain it somehow. Um, and then like you said, it could have been a throwaway line, and then in a year or whenever Dwayne decides he is coming back, or whenever Ari needs Dwayne to pop another house, you can follow up on it and you can hammer something out more concrete. But yeah, to just not address it, to pretend like it wasn't part of the story, and then
Right.
also to still bring Travis Scott out, who was part of that initial angle for some reason, for WrestleMania to do the worst run-in of all time. Um, yeah, I don't. It was bad, and like again, you can blame Dwayne, I think, for some of it, but you cannot put this all on Dwayne, because at some point, like, okay, if you're the big creative genius of wrestling, you're the savior of wrestling, and you're dealing with a match between the biggest star of the current era and the biggest star of the previous era, you should be able to figure out how to put 4 weeks of compelling television together without needing Brian and Dwayne to hold your hand. I'm sorry.
So something to keep an eye on still there. The Dwayne Johnson, Paul Levesque, Brian Wards, Ari Emanuel, Nick Khan dynamic.
Yeah, like, keep in mind, Nick Khan and Dwayne, good childhood friends.
Yep.
And I think we saw last year, who's gonna get their way ultimately when push comes to shove. I mean, I guess Dwayne did acquiesce on the Roman match last year, but that was more due to fan backlash than due to Paul convincing him of anything. So it's like, yeah, I think if Dwayne decides that's what he wants, then I don't know. Good luck. Good luck, Paul.
Nick Khan made a cameo at WrestleMania after Steve Austin crashed an ATV into the ringside barricade.
Oh, it was incredible. It was like an incredible sequence of minutes where we see Austin crash this thing, and then he just immediately jumps into the ring to do his thing, and then it cuts down to him at the end. And you just see Nick Khan with his back to the camera, not even like trying to acknowledge that he's on television, just clearly trying to get this woman not to sue the company right there. Like the CEO of the company had to run over and get involved in this carny BS because one of the circus performers had a couple of cocktails before he got on his ATV to drive around the ring. Allegedly, I don't know that Steve was imbibing beforehand or not.
Well, we can't say for sure. However, his music hit, and there was a long break before the ATV came out. And I was thinking, oh well, you know, I guess they're having a hard time getting the ATV started, like the year that LA Knight sports car wouldn't start, or whatever the deal was,
Right.
whatever. And then the fan video leaks, and Austin's driving this ATV, and he misses this 20-foot wide ramp that he's supposed to drive up to get the ATV up, and it takes like four people to maneuver this vehicle back to get the ramp, to get it on the ramp, to get it up onto the stage. So his music is playing for like 60 seconds before we ever see Stone Cold on the ATV. So I don't know. There's probably evidence there if you want there to be.
Correct. But yes, the highlight of the show really being Nick Khan back to camera, desperately trying to get a woman who was struck by an ATV or by the barricade that was struck by the ATV to not sue
Right.
the company.
Right. Now, there are a lot of people saying that the woman flopped, right?
Hmm.
I'm not saying she did or she didn't. I did think, she did appear to be a couple of feet back from the barricade, and then all of a sudden she falls backwards as though she is flopping. However, the reaction was almost too fast to be a flop, so I don't know. If I were on a jury, I could probably go either way on that.
Yeah, it was like it's not like the New Japan guardrails. Like these are pretty thick things. So I mean, you could definitely see where the screen like got pushed back a few inches, but yeah, I don't know if it was enough to
Right.
send somebody flying. But at the same time, also it could have just been the shock of the moment because an ATV came speeding at you at 40 miles an hour and slammed 2 inches in front of you, and maybe just the shock and the momentum of it was enough to make you want to like instinctively try to fall back to avoid what appears to be impact that's about to happen. Yeah, it was incredible and probably the true highlight of 2 days of WrestleMania. If I'm now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay, so I think NXT happened also over the weekend. It was fine. Men's champion retained and the women's champion retained. So on the biggest show of the year. So I guess we're not elevating anybody. I don't know. The tag team titles changed, so maybe Nathan Frazier and Axiom are headed to the main roster.
It could be. I would like to see it. They can bring their almost breaking up but never breaking up shtick to a new audience. They did put Stephanie Vacker on Raw on Monday. That was like the only NXT, and I guess Julia made Raw too, but that was I think just to hype up an NXT match, not actually like a debut for anybody. So we'll see, I guess.
Un- Unclear. They've been playing footsie with Roxanne Perez for months too. It's like she's not fully part of the NXT roster. She's not on SmackDown. She's not on Raw. She's on every show though. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. Dynamite this week felt like a rerun, except I guess we had the finals of the Women's Owen Hart tournament are set now with Jamie Hayter beating Chris Statlander to advance, and we have Moxley defending his title in a couple of weeks here. And FTR has a new manager in Stokely Hathaway. But aside from that, AEW felt like a show booked at 5 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon when the guy in charge of booking the show is too busy working on the NFL draft this week, is what it felt like to me. But any quick dynamite thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, Young Bucks tag with Speedball and Kevin Knight was a lot of fun. A PWG style moves match. It was a lot of fun. I'm on. They were in there with two good high energy, quick moving guys. I'm not completely taking off Bucks or Washed watch yet, but they had a very good match, I thought. And I liked the main event with Jamie and Stat as well. Rest of the show, yeah, pretty underwhelming. FTR heels, that's good. They've been heels to me the entire time. So, and they got some, and ideally they have someone to talk for them now, which is even better. But unfortunately, Dax and Cash both still talked as well. So, some kinks to work out there. But yeah, I mean the rest of the show, yeah, it was holding pattern stuff. They've got Hangman and Kyle Fletcher in the other semi-final match that'll set up the Double or Nothing finals. Whoever gets that gets Osprey. So it was a lot of Don Callis family heat up and down the show. There's like 15 people in that faction all of a sudden. I feel like there was 3 guys for a long time, and now there's 60 because Rocky and Trent have returned and are heels now. So um, is that just so that Rocky can manage Takeshita like in Japan since Don doesn't want to go to Japan? Is that what that's for? I don't know.
Heel Rocky Romero sounds terrible to me.
Yeah, he's like a great
And
great natural baby face. I don't know why you would do that, but
he turned out Tomohiro Ishii to cement the turn. And Tomohiro Ishii, who never wins in AEW. It's like, oh, he turned out his New Japan friend who loses every match we ever see him in. Why do we care that Ishii's getting beat up? I don't know. I didn't think it was any good.
I feel like this would be well. Orange Cassidy's also hurt, by the way, which you would be forgiven for not knowing because
Right.
I don't think they ever said it on TV, but apparently he tore his pec.
No.
Um, but
Yeah.
so like I feel like that's also part of that because like he was part of the conglomeration guys that are all kind of scattered across the show. Like they put Kyle back with Adam Cole and Roddy, and Mark Briscoe's kind of doing his own thing and whatever. So yeah, maybe if Orange was around there, this would feel a little bit more focused. But yeah, the only guys left are Ishii for them to beat up. But anyway, yeah, they're setting up stuff for Double or Nothing. I was a little surprised to see that the Joe Mox match is not at the pay per view.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe that's because they're gonna do blood and or not blood and guts, Anarchy in the Arena with all of these guys because that was the opening of Dynamite the last 2 weeks has involved like, or the ending of Dynamite the previous week. It's like the Bucks and the Death Rider guys minus Pac, who's hurt, and then some combination of Swerve and the Ops um, fighting off the Young Bucks every week. So I guess depending on if Hangman is in the finals of the Owen or not, he could be the fifth guy there. Or if Hook is healthy, yeah, I guess that's the other issue. But yeah, so maybe that maybe I just explained it to myself because they're doing the title match on TV because Mox is going to be in Anarchy and they're bringing at the pay-per-view.
Ooh, boy. Let me just say, I am on. Let's see, what number are we here? I'm on like day 11 of a 12-day no day off stretch, and your boy is tired. After 12 nights, your boy is tired. I'm ready to not think about wrestling for a couple days. Unfortunately, I will have to keep up with wrestling while I'm not thinking about wrestling for 2 days. But I chose this life.
Mm-hmm.
I consciously chose this life. So really, who's there to blame but me? Any final thoughts before we get out of here? What did you see any indie stuff over the weekend that you liked?
I did not get to see the whole match. Sabu took some phenomenal bumps, some phenomenally stupid bumps in his final match, as you would hope Sabu would. So big ups to that. And then I saw Natty got the big marks for her Bloodsport match. So well, you get that girl out of Stanford for 5 seconds, and she can actually do something compelling for once. Good for your friend Natalia.
Yeah, Suzuki beat Suzuki and Butterbean went to like a double count out in one of the worst matches in the history of wrestling.
Oh, that's good.
Might have to track that one down.
Yeah,
Might have to track that one down. And Steve Montgomery Michael died. Speaking of bad wrestlers from the 90s. We talked about this off the air, and I think I saw you tweeting about it as well. But Steve McMichael started wrestling when he was like pushing 40.
Mm-hmm.
And after he played like 15 years of 1980s football,
Yeah.
which bad padding, bad helmets, fewer rules. Like, it's amazing that anyone was able to walk after playing 1980s pro football.
Yeah.
And he started wrestling when he was like 40. And he was not good, but he was I think you said it was interesting.
Yeah,
He was
he's
bad in
bad.
an interesting way.
He wrestled like a football player who didn't know how to wrestle, which makes sense because that's what he was. Like, in other words, like he could have a fun little hoss, like if they were throwing like forearms and lariats and stuff at each other, or big shoulder tackles. But like you get like him and Meng in the ring, or I think they do him and
Right.
Goldberg on a. I don't know if that's on a pay-per-view or not, but I think there's a him and Goldberg match that's pretty fun too. Like it's clunky as hell, but it's fun because I mean we talked a little earlier, some in a somewhat joking fashion, the idea of wrestling being a struggle and not a cooperation. That was President Mongo's match. He looked like a football player who didn't really know how to wrestle, but was trying to win or was trying to win. like,
Right.
like he had
Yes.
an intensity and a charisma to him, and I guess from those DVDs that they produced, was very much apt at the horseman lifestyle and all that implies. So he and Rick stayed, good friends all the way to the end, it appeared. So despite the fact that he never really did anything again in wrestling after like I never even saw him like backstage at a Raw or anything. Like I don't think he cared much for the business other than maybe the couple friends he had. So yeah, it didn't. Hey, let's get him under a Legends contract. Let's get some Mattel Mongo figures.
Yeah. No reason not to at this point. Very much an over with the boys kind of guy, but also, as we pointed out, was not without merit as a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
So.
a great clip of Nash from one of his shoots, just being like, love him, can't say a bad word about him. And it's just because he like smoked weed with them and
Right.
bought drinks for everybody at the hotel bar.
Right. You sent me that clip of Nash's shoot, and then which led me to another clip from the Nash shoot where he was talking about Bret Hart. Did you see this?
I don't think so.
So somebody sends in a question. It's a you shoot or whatever. So somebody sends in a question, and he's like, Nash goes, "I have no problem with Bret Hart." And then the host, his sidekick, who does this podcast with him now. Those two have great chemistry. I forget the guy's name, but is it Sean Oliver? I don't know.
Yes, definitely
might be
Sean something.
Yeah. So he goes, well, I'm not the spokesman for the universe, but I think there's a criticism out there that, maybe Bret took himself and took things a little bit too seriously. And Kevin Nash was like, well, I'm willing to cut him a little bit of slack because think of his socialization process. He's like, his dad was Stu. He's like, there was a literal dungeon in his house with people screaming in pain. He's like, how many people have that kind of upbringing? He's like, I'm willing to cut Bret some slack.
That's great.
It's a great
nuanced Nash. I love it.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, I'm Ethan.
And I'm Liam.
We'll be back soon with more stories from the wrestling life.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Now, here are this week's bonus features.
So I didn't tell you this last week because we were on a time crunch a little bit. So I filled my apartment with smoke a couple of weeks ago.
What? How?
I'm not purposefully. I should clarify. You can see why that would confuse you. But
yeah, I was wondering, is this I'll just shut up and let you explain.
Okay. So someone was nice enough to purchase me glass baking dishes for my new place, and it's like a fun added feature for the cost. They all come with plastic lids, for storing. Once you've made the meal, it's basically turns it into Tupperware. You can put it right in the fridge instead of needing additional things or whatever. So what happened was I was looking. I don't really have a great place to store things of that size. I had not been using my stove for storage, just I hadn't needed it, but now I have more pots and pans than I have space for where I keep them. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna put these last things in the stove. And didn't think about it. I don't use my actual oven every night. I tend to use the burners or the air fryer or something to make my dinner a lot because that's simpler and less time consuming. So I see a recipe that involves baking. I'm like, oh, I have those baking dishes. That's great. I'll try this out. It's pretty similar to a recipe I already make for chicken in the air fryer, so I could just it'll be easy. I already have all the ingredients. I already have the chicken. And then so I'm reading the recipe. I'm getting the seasoning together and everything, and then I noticed there's like a YouTube tutorial that's like 90 seconds long, so I'll click on that. And on their video, they use like a metal like baking pan rather than the glass dishes, which I was planning to use. So I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I'll just use the metal pan because I have one of those too. So I get everything together. I put it on the foil. I start preheating the oven. I make my seasoning. They have you like oil the chicken and then you sprinkle it on each side of the chicken and then you flip it over and you sprinkle it on the other side. And then I hear like the bing for my thing. My oven's finished. preheating, and I look over and there's just smoke pouring out of it because I didn't take the glass baking dishes out of the stove because I forgot they were in there.
Oh.
Because previous to that day, I had never stored anything in my stove, so it wasn't something I thought about checking when I turned the stove on. So,
right.
And ironically, I would have gone to grab those baking dishes if I had just used the glass dish as I had intended. And then instead I watched a YouTube video and I was like, I'll like a man who can't think for himself. I then went and used the metal pan and metal sheet instead, and ended up with a lot of melted plastic on the bottom of my stove, and most of those dishes are ruined, which is a bummer. Managed to salvage one, the biggest one. That lid didn't really melt. It just kind of got it just, I don't know. It, like, the lid was ruined, but the dish was salvageable. The smaller, there was like 3 smaller dishes that it came with that were just ruined because they were just covered in melted plastic. So couple notes. Smoke that comes from melting plastic, not pleasant on the eyes. Don't recommend being around it if you can help it. And then, as you might expect, my smoke alarm in my apartment started going off. And my smoke alarm is neat. It goes it beeps very loud. It almost sounds like a truck backing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a little voice that comes out of it that goes, fire, beep, 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 fire. And so I go and I press the button to like silence it, and it goes, too much smoke, cannot silence. And it keeps going, beep, 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 fire. So I'm trying to both like keep that from going off for 10 straight minutes to the point where like people in my building think there is an actual fire. At no point was there a fire, to be clear. I understand why you would want something to say that in an apartment building, because if I light a fire or if I pass out, and like at some point someone needs to hear the word fire and a loud beep so that someone else can figure out what's going on if I'm not able to, or if I'm not addressing that, or if I'm not home. So I understand why it's there, but it's like, it's going off. I reach up to grab it to take it off the wall, and it turns out it's wired into the wall.
Naturally,
which again kind of makes sense, because stupid people would just take it off the wall and take the batteries out. So I kind of understand that, but I thought it was in like a little holder thing that I could take down. Because that's kind of how the ones are at work. Turns out it's just kind of super glued to the wall. So then it's kind of hanging out of the wall, and still going fire. So I run around, I turn on my big fan above my oven, and I open all my windows. Thankfully, it was like 55 degrees outside and not like 35 like it was a couple other days last week. Or like 95, I guess, is also good. And the apartment aired out in about 30-40 minutes. So I guess it could have been
well, it's not
worse.
as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, no permanent damage other than to the smaller baking dishes, which had to be thrown away. And there's still a little bit. I haven't really used the oven since then. There's still a little bit of dried plastic I need to scrape off the bottom of it before I can use it again. But yeah, well, I hope so. I think the valuable lesson learned is to never try anything new or try to learn a new skill that you don't already currently possess. I think that's the lesson we've learned.
Well, I can't argue with that. With that conclusion.
I try to keep on keeping on.